As you know, I intend to turn this job over to a Republican majority leader. I have full confidence in my conference to choose my replacement and lead our country forward. There'll be other times to reminisce. I'm immensely proud of the accomplishments I've played some role in obtaining for the American people. Today is not the day to discuss all of that, because as I said earlier, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. There are many challenges we must meet to deliver for the American people, and each will have my full effort and attention. I still have enough gas in my tank to thoroughly disappoint my critics, and I intend to do so with all the enthusiasm with which they become accustomed. So to my colleagues, thank you for entrusting me with our success. It's been an honor to work with each of you. There'll be plenty of time to express my gratitude in greater detail as I sprint towards the finish line, which is now in sight. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Maine.
Mr. President, I just want to very briefly recognize my good friend, the Republican leader, for his extraordinary service, not only to our caucus, but more important, to the Senate as an institution and to our country. His tenure as leader will be remembered not just for its historic longevity, but also for his unparalleled devotion to this great institution, which he has always defended. I also admired the leader for stepping forward when it wasn't popular to do the right thing for our country and for our world. There will be plenty of time for all of us to honor him in more detail as time goes on. But I felt compelled to speak today to thank him for devoting his life to public service for all the right reasons, to improve the lives of the people living in our great country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Alabama.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that Jacob Walker, here my intern, have privileges of today, March the 1st.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Mr. President, that's the oath that we all take once we become senators of the United States. Mr. President, just imagine that you are Allison and John Phillips. Last Thursday afternoon, you get a phone call from law enforcement in Athens, Georgia. The voice on the other end of the phone says that your daughter has been murdered by an illegal immigrant. I cannot imagine what that feels like. I cannot even begin to understand the shock and sadness and anger. Laken Riley was a nursing student at Augusta, Georgia, this past year. Wednesday morning, she went out for a jog on campus of the University of Georgia. She never came back. Police found her body in the woods a few hours later, around noontime. She was covered with blood and injuries from head to toe. An autopsy found that she died of blunt force trauma to the head. The charging documents in this case say that her skull was disfigured. This was a brutal murder of an innocent young woman. Laken Riley was just 22 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She had a bright future. Now that future will never be realized. You know, I spent 40 years of my life on college campuses. I dedicated my life to coaching young adults. But I wasn't just a coach, I was also a mentor. There's nothing more heartbreaking than losing a promising young person like Laken Riley. And I want to offer my condolences to the Laken family. Our number one commodity in this country is our young people. Laken's death is even more heartbreaking because it could have been prevented and should have been prevented. On Friday night, police arrested and charged Jose Antonio Ibarra with malice murder, felony murder, aggravated battery, aggravated assault, false imprisonment, kidnapping, and hindering a 911 call. Jose Ibarra is an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. In other words, he should never have been in this country in the first place. This brutal and horrific murder would have been prevented if Joe Biden and Democrats had done their job by enforcing the law. Jose Ibarra crossed the southern border in El Paso in September of 2022, a year and a half ago. He was paroled into our country, and I'll talk about parole here in just a minute. His social media accounts show that he went from El Paso to New York City. New York is a sanctuary state and a city. That means that illegals who commit crimes will not be turned over to the immigration police when their jail time is up. This is an open invitation by New York City to criminals. We have a lot of these sanctuary cities in our country today. According to ICE, immigration police, he was arrested just 5 months ago in New York, charged with acting in a manner to injure a child and for driving without a license. Specifically, he was arrested for allegedly endangering a 5-year-old child 5 months ago. Athens police call the murder of Laken Riley a crime of opportunity. In other words, this was essentially a random act of violence. It could have been anyone's daughter. She did absolutely nothing wrong. So my question is, where are Georgia's senators today? What are Georgia's senators doing to secure the border to protect more people like Laken Riley? Where is their outrage? Soon the Senate will hold a trial on articles of impeachment against Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, the guy that's in charge of our border. Georgia's senators, how are they going to vote when the trial comes up? Are they going to vote for Secretary Mayorkas since he's been impeached in the House? Because he is the one that let this killer in. Are senators from border states like California and Arizona going to save Mayorkas' job, the job that he has refused to do for the last 3.5 years? We'll find out, and find out soon. In the House, every single Democrat fell in line and voted to save Mayorkas' job just a few weeks ago. Every single Democrat. And the guy hadn't done his job in 3.5 years. Every single House Democrat endorsed the job that Secretary Mayorkas is doing. That includes 5 Democrats from the state of Georgia, where Laken Riley was killed. In a separate vote, 150 House Democrats voted against deporting illegals who had been convicted of drunk driving. 150. All Democrats voted against deporting illegals if they got caught drunk driving. That includes all 5 Georgia's Democrats in the House. This is today's Democratic Party. And I go back to the oath that we all took to protect domestic and foreign. To protect. Are Senate Democrats going to put their political careers on the line by continuing to support the least popular president in modern history who has not done his job at the border? We'll soon find out. Are they going to stand beside somebody that's broken the law? If Laken Riley were my daughter, Secretary Mayorkas would have a lot more to worry about than a pending impeachment trial. He'd need to go into hiding. It's embarrassment to this country of how these people are holding people accountable under the law. I would do everything in my power to ensure he never forgot her name and that his inaction led to her death. Blood is on his hands. I cannot possibly understand what this family is going through today. But for open borders, all the open border crowd, she is just collateral damage. Just somebody else, been murdered, won't be talked about again, don't worry about it. All we care about is votes. All we care about is power. To Democrats in this administration, Laken Riley is just another sacrifice on the altar of woke ideology. The blame for this crime lies with this administration and with the Democratic